Hey there.
Hi.
Hi, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
So I was just saying that I really wanted to talk today about the retreat that I went on because a whole
Mhm.
lot of it involves mindset and that's your jam. And so I thought it'd just be a fun conversation to have and kind of just be able to share some things that I learned with everybody because it
Yeah,
was
let's do
it was
it.
really awesome. So let me turn this up a little bit. Can't hear you very well. Okay. Um, excuse me. So last week for 4 days, I went to Florida and I went on this retreat with a bunch of women. So first of all, I'm sure a lot of you have had this experience, Amanda. I know that we have too, like within our own group of friends, that anytime that you get together with a group of women, you just feel like you can kick a lot of ass when it's over with, right? Like, I don't know what it is about the energy of having a lot of women, but you always feel just excited, like whether it's a girls' night with your friends or like something more intensive like this. But excuse me, one of the things that we talked a lot about and kind of worked through we did lots of yoga and juice cleansing, and we had a chef there that made all these vegan foods for us, and it was really, really wonderful. But part of it was also just kind of working through things that we're having trouble with, where we feel like we're stuck. And the
Mhm.
interesting thing about what we call limiting beliefs, so those are basically when you have these fears come up and you feel like you can't do something or whatever it is, it's usually coming back to the same story because that fear is rooted in a belief, which is oftentimes your perception of something that happened that really stuck with you. But the funny thing about these is it reminds me of this game they used to have at Chuck E. Cheese, where there's like these little things pop up and you have to hit them on the head and it's like, oh, you got one, but here's
Oh,
another one.
whack-a-mole.
Yes, that game. That
Mhm.
game. That's how I feel like limiting beliefs are, because you think you've got it and then bam, it pops up somewhere else. And sometimes it really takes some work to kind of figure out where the root of that came from, or to even recognize that it's the same thing. You're like, I thought I already dealt with this shit, and then here it is again, and you got to like do the work again. So when we say mindset work, it really is work. Don't you agree?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm of the belief that this mindset stuff shows up in literally everything that we do, like not just business, but like life stuff too. And I think that it's an interesting analogy that you made because it really is like you solve it in one area and that well solve it you shift those beliefs in one area and then that very same belief can pop up in another instance, and sometimes it's harder to recognize, right? So sometimes like I see with clients, like the stories that they have around money or stories that they have around marketing, like we can solve it on the business side, and then I'll see them like make a comment about something in their life, like something that happened over the weekend, or like something they want to buy but they're like, oh no, like it's not, like I don't have the budget for that right now or something like that. And like I'll connect the dots for them and I'll be like, no, like remember we solved that over here. And it's kind of like those breakthrough moments where they're like, oh crap, it's showing up again, right? So I think that like you're right, like I mean, I think the mindset stuff is a constant evolution. Like we just keep up leveling what we're going for, and that brings up new mindset things. So I don't think that we're ever truly done. But I think when you solve it in one area, you can just like transplant that belief into another. It's a lot easier. Does that make sense?
No, I think it totally does. I mean, you think you've got it all under control and then it pops up somewhere else. So, or in a different way. That's the really interesting thing is that I listened to all these women share their stories, and of course I shared my own, and this is super vulnerable to say, but and I don't even know why, but I felt like the thing that surprised me was that so much of it comes back to feeling like you're worthy. And I was like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that was really something that I have an issue with. But it made me just think that maybe everybody has that. It's, in some way, it's one of those whack-a-mole things. I think that, just because you have some feelings of unworthiness doesn't mean that you think terrible of yourself. I think
No,
maybe
I mean,
that.
I think it's like those kind of thoughts can show up differently for everyone, which is why I think it's so important to do the thought work and like just do like a giant brain dump of like, okay, so I'm feeling unworthy. Like that feels like a really blanket statement, right? And most people are like, I don't even know what that means. So if we go a little bit deeper on that, we do some journaling exercises or we do a brain dump and we look at like, what am I actually thinking, what that's making it difficult for me to invest in myself? What am I actually thinking when I'm not showing up in my marketing and I don't think I'm worthy of success? Like when you're able to go there and look at the actual thoughts, it's a lot easier to shift them. And it's a lot easier to kind of, I mean, in the beginning, you're basically tricking your brain, right? You're just telling your brain to think a different thought, which is like, money can freely flow in. I am worthy of success. I'm showing up consistently because people would be crazy not to work with me. Like those kind of beliefs, and those can feel like a stretch at first, right? So we want to start with a thought that feels more comfortable than anything like really super out there, and then gradually we're able to shift those beliefs and gradually we can up level them. But that's why the thought work is so important, because otherwise it just feels really vague and it's really hard to shift something that's just like vague blanket unworthiness, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had two calls with new coaching clients this week. And the first thing that came up, I was like, I can see it. I can see it because it's the unworthiness piece. And yeah, I mean, but I always tell them, like, I see these things, but I've done this, I've been there. Like, I'm
Yeah.
speaking because I know where you are and I understand it, because I think that is kind of that's like an uncomfortable thing to talk about, but you have to, if that's the thing that's really holding you back. Because and the entrepreneurs that I work with, again, I see it because I've been there and I've seen it in myself and had to do the work. But so many times that shows up where that's the thing that's really holding you back. It's not taking another course. It's not that your skill set's not there. It's like, I always think about it, and I love an analogy. So it's like you have all the ingredients to make the perfect cake, but you just can't get it to work.
Oh my gosh. I used the cake analogy with a client this week. So it's hilarious that you said that. But we were talking about how they were putting this immense amount of pressure on themselves. And it was making it really hard for them to show up. And I was like, right now, you guys are making sure that you have like the best flour and the best eggs and like the best everything that's going into this cake. And at the end of the day, like it's a 2-year-old's birthday party and they just want a fucking cake. Like we just need to like get it out there more consistently, because they're overanalyzing, they're putting so much more pressure on themselves that it's making it hard for the right people to find them. And yeah, analogies are great. Love that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Here's another one for you. Let's just top that off with another one. It also, like, that whole thing reminds me of like if you're doing yoga or something like that, where you're trying to monitor your body. So you are compensating in one place for a weakness in the other. And that's the same thing that kind of does with your mind, because you're like, well, I have this fear that it's not going to be good enough, so I'm going to overcompensate by making sure that every little thing is perfect, and even the stuff that nobody else cares about.
Right.
But you've decided that it's super important, but you're really just kind of avoiding these other areas where you don't feel as strong or as confident. And so you have to get in there and do that shit work. It's like, you have to do it.
And that's why it's so hard too, right? Is because it's so much more comfortable to work on the stuff that feels like, okay, if I just like make sure that this piece that I'm super comfortable with is the best part that it could possibly be, or like I'm overcompensating in this area, it makes it so that your brain doesn't have to deal with all the stuff you're actually struggling with. And I think that's why working with a coach is so powerful, because they really push you to look at, I mean, you and I both do it. We push our clients to look at the shit they don't want to look at, right?
Yeah. Or, it's also good to have BFFs like you, because I love it. You're just like, cut the shit, Shanna. Just seriously. Just. You're like, that sounds like an excuse to me. And I'm like, damn it, it is an excuse. But I mean, everybody has to have somebody like that.